Greetings, folks. Welcome back to the Jason Damico Show. Thank you for subscribing, watching, listening, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, Simplecast, and much more. And our guest today is very special, as they always are, because every guest is a special guest on the show. But we go way back, way back before I actually can even remember where we met, because I was a wee little lad. But our guest is an award-winning television journalist, certified holistic health coach, and certified havening techniques practitioner. She spent years as a performer, but found her true passion is that she is able to blend her love of storytelling with health and wellness. She's also an award-winning college professor at St. John's University in New York, where she teaches an on-camera presentation and broadcasting. She currently hosts a number of health shows and can be seen regularly making appearances as a health wellness expert on TV stations across the country. And you may even catch her in the last Blue Buffalo commercial with her cat, Eliza. I saw that commercial. It's amazing. And her motto is to be kind to your mind, and she encourages and empowers others to follow that path to thrive, holistically speaking. Please welcome to the show my very good friend, Miss Hilary Russo.
What a pleasure. What a pleasure. Thank you, Jason. It's so great to see you. And
You
boy,
too.
we have known each other a very long time. Since you're a wee little bit.
I don't even remember how we met. It was just literally when I was a tween. Somewhere around there.
I remember.
You do?
I mean, I don't remember the moment we saw each other, but you were probably with your mom. It was theater. I mean, it was theater. I remember this young little rock star.
Oh boy!
And I know I'm not going to embarrass you, but maybe I will.
I think we're already past that point. Let's just hear it.
Well, when you use the term "wee little bit" beforehand, I'm like, well, now you just put yourself down to like preteen years, and
right.
you dated me because I'm like, great. So now I'm like retirement age. I knew you from the days when we were in North Carolina back in the day. I would have to say it was probably the early 2000s, and you were just starting to get out there in the acting world. I was already in the acting world because I was performing in television commercials and on stage professionally. And I think you came to like a meeting with your mom, a theater, an actors meeting. It might have even been Cannes.
I think it was Cannes.
Which Creative Actors Action Network. Oh, yeah. Yes, I remember. So we met there, and I befriended your mom. But I don't know, you and I felt like it was like this brother-sister thing, you know. And
yeah.
I loved this bond that I felt we had, because I was like this big sister, and you and I connected on a number of projects, and I don't know. And then befriending your mom too is great. So I felt like it was like great to be part of the Damico family in a way. So yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a lot of ground to cover. You have quite the career and a lot of cool new things happening. You are far from retirement.
I hope so. I can't do it now, that's for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about your beginning stages as far as how you got into what you've gotten into, which again is a lot. But would love to dive into those early years as far as getting acclimated with TV, film, journalism, and how that started for you.
Well, my first job in broadcasting, I was working the overnights at a light rock Les Chalk station in Shreveport, Louisiana. And I got the weirdos because my first gig I could get graduating college, even though I worked in college radio in Dallas and whatnot. And I'm from New York originally, but I went to school at SMU in Dallas. My first job was to do an overnight shift from like 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. And it was like Michael Bolton and Yanni and, you know, Mannheim Steamroller and all that stuff. And That was my first like paid, really good paid gig. Well, good paid gig. You don't really get paid that great in radio, unless you're like New York and national or whatever.
Right.
But for me, it was awesome. And then I supplemented it during the day. I worked at a TV station in Shreveport, and I was like a production assistant, and did teleprompter and scripts and whatever. And I did that for about a year, and then I got my first real morning producer, and then soon after I took over the anchor slot. So I was a producer anchor at an NBC affiliate in Louisiana, and I was there for a number of years, and then 9/11 happened.
Mm.
So that changed a lot of things. I was a young journalist facing 9/11, and it was a similar situation to not knowing what's going on, like we're dealing with right now.
Right.
And I grew up a lot in that period of my life. So, but it was great. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I learned a lot. Yeah.
Your undergraduate is in journalism.
My undergraduate actually was TV, radio, film,
Okay.
and my minor was theater at SMU in Dallas. And I knew I was going to go into the field of, I don't even want to say broadcasting. I just knew that I loved being creative. I grew up in the theater. I grew up, in New York. You're just surrounded by creative types. I came from a family of artists. My brother's he's a visual artist. My grandfather and cousins were singers. I'm related to Perry Como, believe it or not. So I have a lot of the creative arts around me, and I just decided it was just natural for me. It was organic to go into a field of storytelling, whatever that meant. Because like you can be a storyteller and be a musician, a poet, a writer, visual artist, stage, whatever it is. These are all storytellers. So for me, when I started there, I started as a TV film major, but then I just kind of fell into broadcasting as far as being a news anchor, and did that for a number of years. And then when I moved to North Carolina, I took a break. I needed a break after 9/11 happened. I knew I was moving there anyway. And I decided I was going to take a little break from the anchor desk for a while, because I'd seen a lot as a young journalist, and I wanted to take a step back from a little bit and breathe and do a little self-care. But it wasn't long before I was back into it. I mean, I did a lot of theater during that time. That's where we met. I did a lot of commercial work, industrial work as well, because of, just hosting so much stuff and using my voice. The industrial corporate world was really good to me in North Carolina, actually. And it didn't hurt to not it didn't hurt to not be the blonde hair, blue-eyed girl in North Carolina, because I was like, it's where I first heard the term ethnically ambiguous. So I did get a lot of work because I was this dark-haired girl. I would never be the blonde pushing the Swiffer. I would be like we need the one that looks kind of Hispanic or Latino. That was a lot of my work.
Right.
Except if I was hired for like voiceover, that didn't matter. But
Right.
For a lot of the commercial work, if you look at it, you're like, oh, okay, she's that one. Now I come to New York and it's like, everybody here looks like me. I come back home, and so you really have to just find and hone in on your craft. And as they say in the theater show Gypsy, you got to have a gimmick in a way, but you just have to have something that's your shtick,
So that transition for you, what were some of the challenges, if there were any?
Transition out of news for a while, or which transition?
Yeah.
Challenges. Yeah. I mean, I basically, from Louisiana to North Carolina, I moved with no job. So I made a move there, not like I had this job to look forward to, not too soon after getting there, and I was working in theater. I was also working with, as a producer in the theater area as well. Like I worked a lot for North Carolina Theater, but then I worked for Hot Summer Nights of the Kennedy, and I was a producer and PR, they're a publicist as well. And then while I was also in that area, I just kind of realized I need to when there's no work, create it kind of thing.
Right.
It's
Right.
the creative mind works like that. So I was like, oh, my background in news, I know what it looks like to put a press release in front of me, and it's either going to go in the inbox or the outbox, which is the trash. I knew how to write a good publicity and press release to get more stuff in the inbox and in the hands that they need to be in. So publicity wound up being an area that I focused on for a while I was trying to thrive as a commercial actor, as a host. I mean, I hosted that show Second Cinema for 7 years in North Carolina, which was the independent film show.
Right.
And that was great. I mean, I loved doing that show, and I'm still really close with the producers, Matt and Josh. And that I realized, it's like, when there's nothing right there on the table, what are my skills? What are things that I love to do? Where's my passion and my purpose that I can put it forward and use that to my advantage in order to continue to keep myself afloat,
Afloat. Yeah.
and not just survive, but thrive.
Right.
So the challenges were going somewhere where people didn't know me at first, but I'm not a wallflower, so that
Right.
that went okay for me, right? And but the challenge was just walking away from a full-time job, which was my news anchor job. And from that moment on, that moment, 2 weeks after 9/11 happened, was the last time I've ever worked full-time for one place.
Wow.
That's a long time ago. I know, I've been an independent contractor for like 20 something years. So, or almost 20 years. So it's, yeah, that's the challenge, is just accepting the challenge and going with it.
Did you have who were some of the major influences for you growing up?
It, oh, that's a good question. I'll tell you, the hardest question is to be asked a question, because I'm so used to asking the questions. I'm so used to being the one that's asking.
Right.
Some of my influences, I would have to say, from the broadcasting era, I loved Charles Kuralt. I loved, the Sunday morning show that's still on now. I mean, just without certain people that were a part of it. And the people that were good storytellers and good active listeners, like the Studs Terkels of the world. I mean, he was huge in radio and was doing his thing until he was like 90 something years old. And if you haven't seen the documentary about him, Listening to America, like it's amazing. But those kind of people were influences. And then, of course, women, powerful women back then, before, Oprah's become who she is today. And it's such a different Oprah from who she was, from what we knew, having a big TV show and whatnot.
Mhm.
But she was always a wonderful interviewer. And
Right.
I loved listening to her because she was engaging. It wasn't so much the Oprah Winfrey show, but if you look at who she is now and what she's doing, I think she's really doing the kind of work she loves to do. I feel like I saw that back when she was doing the TV show, because she just was so engaging and it was really connecting with people. So those would be a few in that area, definitely. And Barbara Walters, I always loved, and just the heavy hitters,
Yeah.
because I was impressed by them, growing up in New York. And a lot of them started out in the local New York market before they moved on to the bigger national waves. So just those folks that you could really listen to, and you're engaged by the questions they're answering. And as I tell my students all the time, I mean, I teach compassionate journalism at St. John's.
Mm.
That's what I call the class. I don't technically call it that, but I do, because I feel like we're walking away from that with everything that's going on. Journalists aren't being taken seriously. We live in the age of social media,
Right.
and it needs to stay. It needs to remain the story of the person who is, you're giving them the space to share, and they're sharing that space with you. You have to be really kind to the fact that this person's offering you time, just like this. You're having me on the podcast, right? This is shared space. I am in your home, basically. The Jason Damico show is your home, and I am appreciative of being able to be welcomed in. But in return, you're hosting me and making me feel welcome. That's what's so
Hopefully.
important. Yeah. I know you well enough. We're good. But it's a dance. It's really a dance. And
Right.
there's and I love dropping this guy's name because I learned a lot from one of his TED Talks. Julian Treasure, he is a communications expert. And he came up with this idea of the Hale Method. And the Hale Method is do everything with honesty, authenticity, integrity, and love. The Hale Method, Hail. So I use that in my class all the time with my kids. And I'm like, you need to give them Hale. You need to give them Hale. Everything you do, give them Hale. Come from authenticity, honesty, authenticity, integrity, and love. When you have those four things present and you're grateful, you're going to go in the right direction.
That's
You have no
good.
choice. Yeah. So
I'm stealing that one. That's good.
it's fine. Just give them credit. I love, and I share it a lot, and I never take credit for it because I
Right.
feel like anytime somebody says something that's really profound or makes a difference, just tag it back to that person because you sat there with him on the stage talking to you. It could be a Julian Treasure. It could be a Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Yep.
It could be any of these people that just inspire us. Let them know and appreciate them. Be grateful for what they've given you, the knowledge, So, yeah.
What would you say is the major difference between performing / acting and journalism from your
Oh,
experience?
well, I mean, there's one big difference with that. And I learned this early on, but I also battle this sometimes in my classroom. Some of my students think they're taking an acting class when they come into my class. And I'm like, this is not a drama class. This is you being you. If you're here to take a drama class, well, there are ways we can work that in there, but this is really about you bringing yourself when you're in broadcasting, when you're an on-camera presentation. People want to see your vibe. When you're acting, you're bringing a character to the stage. You're going through context of what the character's about. It's not you. There's elements of you in that character, but when people are wanting to hear you, like when they come, when they listen to your podcast, they want to know who Jason is. They want to know who Hilary is. It's not the part of Jason is being played by, So it's important that we're authentic, part of the Hale, to ourselves, and we're honest. And I think the other difference is, in a lot of ways, we're breaking the fourth wall when we're in broadcasting. We're looking at our people.
Right.
There's a connection. The hardest thing about this whole pandemic happening right now is that we're being forced to look at that little tiny dot on our computers, or on our phones and connect with it. And it's really important that we do that instead of looking down or looking around, because eye contact is so important.
Right.
And if we can't be in the same room with the person, at least give them something to let them know that you're paying attention. Because the minute you put your head down for any extended amount of time, you lose your audience, you lose your family, your tribe that you're trying to build.
I feel like there's a lot of people that aren't aware of that.
There is, I know. And I used to teach an on-camera course more on a corporate level, and it's like, I can't take on anymore, But I mean, I try to give that as a takeaway, is that it's really about your audience of one. If I give one tip, your audience of one being, don't treat it like you have a million followers. Don't treat it like you have 10,000 viewers or people watching you. Connect to one person when you are connecting, whether it's your podcast, your television show, your YouTube channel, whatever. Connect with that audience of one. And that audience of one, you need to define who they are. Who is your audience? Are they, is it a 35-year-old guy trying to start out and make his way in Nashville? Is it, for me, is it a young mom who's stressing out because she's taken on homeschooling and being the nurse in the house and being the mom? And I mean, you have to connect with that audience of one, so that even though you're not physically seeing them, they feel that you're connecting with them. And I started using that pretty early on, but especially when I was working in QVC, because at QVC, I was an on-camera sales girl, so I'm selling product, and I need to connect to that one person who's watching and, wants to buy this, yada, 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 and make sure that this item, this tangible item, is connecting with that person. So it's
Yeah.
really no different whether it's tangible or not. For me, I hate to say it's a sale, but we're kind of selling ourselves and our story, and we're going to connect with people that identify with that story too, you know? So connection's really important. Yeah.
Well, while we're on that vein of thought,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit more about St. John. So your master's then was in journalism?
My master's actually was in industrial organizational psychology.
Ooh.
Yeah, I just didn't want to do a thesis. That's why I chose that master's. And it was when I was still in Louisiana and I was working the morning anchor gig. I was there at 4 a.m., worked till noon, went to the gym, went home, slept for a couple hours, and then I would go to class from 6 to 9 in the evening, rinse and repeat.
And what was that, like
So
2 years?
it was a 2-year program, yeah. So I did that in like late 90s. So I took kind of a 5-year hiatus and then went back to school. I'm really dating myself. And so I was a full-time news anchor and producer, and I was going to
Wow.
school.
Oh my God.
So, but it was great. I loved it. I went
Yeah.
to school in Louisiana for my master's, and industrial organizational psychology is just behavioral psychology in the workplace, basically. But I use it every day,
Yeah.
especially in my coaching and with my havening clients and in life in general,
Yeah.
I was just amazed by the brain from a pretty early stage. I just never thought I'd be going into like a field that covers neuroscience.
I had an industrial organization course as a business major,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty interesting.
It is interesting. It's
Yeah.
amazing how people relate to each other,
Right.
that, yeah. So I did enjoy it. And there was a part of me that was like, oh, am I going to go on and maybe and I thought I was going to go get a law degree too. And I'm like, I'll be one of those on camera legal consultants that everybody calls, like, and my dad at the time was like, please do not go into law unless you're going to practice. He's like, don't go into law to get a law degree just so you get to be a legal analyst on television. I'm like,
Right.
okay.
Right.
Wah, wah. So,
Right.
but I just loved hearing people's stories. So I think where I am today is it's like I'm blending my passion with my purpose. Yeah. Which is awesome. I get to do that every day. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about the psychological
Mhm.
aspect of it then, because you've got a lot of cool things happening right now. Certified holistic health coach, also doing the havening techniques and practicing with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll let you kind of take the reins here, but I
Sure.
really would love to learn more. And I think the listeners
Great. I'd love to share.
love to hear it as well.
Yeah, I love talking about emotional well-being.
Yes.
It makes me giddy, actually. I'm such a brain nerd. And so what I kind of fell into it a couple years ago, well, more than a couple. I was doing a live streaming fitness show, which I still do, called Daily Burn 365.
Yeah, I've
Daily
got it
Burn.
written here.
Yeah. Daily Burn is a really awesome platform. We were the first live streaming fitness show that kind of came out from under the umbrella of Daily Burn, which has been around for a while as a fitness, online fitness program. And I was hired about 5 years ago, to be on the show. So I'm one of the people on the show regularly, and I got a chance to host one of the episodes, but I really noticed from the show in general that because there's an element of it where they have like a live chat, and we'd have health coaches come on and answer questions, and it became like this community thing where people were really needing to know they weren't alone in the battle of wellness and health and weight loss journeys and all that stuff. And I dealt with that myself because I grew up and I dealt with the weight problem up and down. I went to fat camp, and yes, it was called fat camp, even though it had a real name. But like, do you remember the TV show that was on TV called Fat Camp?
Yeah. Wasn't there a movie as well?
Yeah. Well, the TV show, the reality show, was based on the camp I
yeah, I know
actually
what you're
went
talking
to.
about.
Like
Oh
it was the
boy.
same activities director, owner of the camp, and my girlfriend and I were like, oh my God, they made a TV show out of our camp in Lackawaxen, Pennsylvania. That's crazy. So anyway, I mean, or as we called it, lack of action. So lack of action, Pennsylvania, because there was nothing going on there but measuring your food and playing tennis and maybe going horseback riding. But it was a great experience, and that kind of changed things for me. I grew up with a father who was diabetic, battled his health his whole adult life and my whole life, and I was dealing with in and out of the hospital with my dad my entire life. So I'd always felt like health and wellness was very close to me. Going to camp was like me learning how to eat properly, but it was never what it is now. Like now we're really learning more because we have this global village where we have the internet, we can look up stuff and connect with people. So when Daily Burn happened, it connected me back to that. It allowed me to kind of relate to like, oh, I remember what that was like, and wishing I had a health coach and wishing I had people that I could really talk to, blah, blah, blah. So I I really decided that I wanted to pursue more in the health world, and how can I fuse my media background with health and wellness? How can my voice be a voice to help others? So I
Right.
wound up getting certified as a integrative nutrition holistic health coach, and then some. I was dealing with some upsets in my life, some traumas, some loss, and havening kind of fell in my lap in a way. I was already certified as a health coach and helping, various people on their different wellness journeys, weight loss, changing diets, whatever it is. And I realized that I need something more. I don't want it to just be about that. I want to help people in a way that it's going to make a positive change to their brain. And I was actually at I was at a birthday party in Manhattan, and and people came in from all over the country from my girlfriend who was turning 50, and I met a girl who she went to high school with, college with rather, and we just started talking towards the end of the night, and I'm like, oh, what do you do? And it's the question everyone asks, what do you do? What do you do?
Right.
And as I was leaving the bar, she just started doing kind of the light havening touch on me. And I remember just sitting there going, yeah, I don't know what you're doing to me, but I want a little bit more of it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I was hitting on her. It was clearly like I knew she was talking to me about a holistic healing method.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what pushed me into havening because, and I'll explain what that is.
Yeah.
I'm sure people are like, what? So havening is a psychosensory approach. And what it does is it uses touch and pleasant distraction. So that could be singing, that could be affirmations, it could be creative visualization. But with this specific type of touch, it's your hands, it's your arms, and it's also your face. That what it does is it alters your thoughts, moods, and behavior. It's
Is it
based on.
similar to EFT?
Very good question. A lot of people think that it's similar to like EFT or tapping or Reiki. Those are
Right.
what they call energy healing modalities.
Okay.
Havening is actually electrochemical. So what that means is it's based on neuroscience. So it alters your thoughts,
Okay.
moods, and behavior. It creates your brain to go into what's called a delta wave state, which are very slow moving brain waves. And then what happens is it releases those happy chemicals that we love to have,
So
the
it's like
oxytocin.
parasympathetic.
You got it. Like, you know
Okay.
what you're talking, like, okay, so you got some neuroscience
Well, I mean,
background.
no. My mom's a nurse and kind of
Yes.
like
Yeah.
all into that. And she's a
Right.
massage therapist now as well. So
Oh, really? I didn't know that. So
yeah.
what it does is it alters your thoughts, moods, and behavior. It creates the delta wave state, and what it does is it releases the happy chemicals in the brain, and that's your
Right.
oxytocin, the serotonin, the dopamine, the kinds of happy chemicals we get when you are in your zone playing your music.
Right.
You're releasing those chemicals. When you're
Right.
working out, you're releasing those chemicals. When you're eating your favorite food, you're releasing those chemicals. But what happens is it has a rapid response, which also makes a difference from those other modalities. And it also is permanent. So what I was going through, some of my traumas in life, some post-traumatic stress and upset, depression, some stuff that really was hitting me hard a couple years ago. When I found this modality and I saw that it removed those things, they were no longer really traumatic to me, but rather just experiences.
Right.
I knew I had to give other people this gift and put the power of healing in their own hands. So Yeah, it's
No,
pretty powerful. So
that's really interesting.
yeah,
So if we could dive in a little bit more,
yeah,
again, I'll give you the reins on it, but I'll just, is there a specific technique that you could exemplify right now that somebody could try, perhaps?
sure. Yeah, I love doing this. I mean, Mike's a little bit in my way, but I do free. It's a,
The
and
big,
I mean, I'm
big
doing.
ass mic, by the
It's
way. That
okay.
thing is
No,
like,
I know. Well,
it's like,
my Yeti.
I
It's my
love it.
baby.
I love it.
I thought about getting the ones that hang, but I got so much stuff going on right now. It's
Yeah.
actually, yeah, maybe I'll move it out of the way a little bit. So havening, what happens is there's 3 areas that you can use it. You can do it on your hands, okay, and it's a constant movement. You can do it on your arms, your outer arms, so kind of like you're giving yourself a hug. Which, when's the last time you gave yourself a hug, right? It's all about self-love. And then your face, if you're comfortable with your face and your hands are clean. So you don't have to do one or the other. You don't have to do all 3. You can stick with an area that is more pleasant to you. But while you're doing that, it's just creating that pleasant distraction in your mind. So it could be, I am healthy. I am happy. I am successful. I'm fine. I'm good. It could be affirmations. It could be you
Mm,
just sitting there singing a really awesome song that you love to sing. It could be creating a visual in your mind, like a place you love to go, which is what I love to do when I do my group sessions.
right.
I do creative visualization, and I have people go to that neural garden in their mind. Not necessarily a garden per se, but they're creating this place that they love to go. So if your favorite place is the beach or it's hiking in the woods, when you do this, you're activating the brain. And we have this area of the brain, and I'm sure you know this just from mom, that's called the amygdala. And
Yep.
the amygdala loves to go to threat mode,
Yeah.
loves it. So like our
Fight or
job,
flight.
yeah,
Yeah.
fight or flight. So we need to nurture Amy. I love to call her Amy, like kind of makes her more, real and kind of a person in a way to nurture. But when we nurture Amy, the amygdala, what we're doing is we are being kind to our mind, as I
Mm,
love to say. So it's just simply doing this kind of activation, doing it for however long you want. I'll do it numerous times a day, and I'll just sit there and I'll either hum a song, I have my eyes shut. I'm just in a really mindful, present place. And if you're doing the affirmations, if you're doing a song, if you're doing the creative visualization while you're havening, you will notice the difference and how your day entirely goes. I also do it before sleep. And I use it in my classroom because it's been great for performance, exam stress. It's great for clarity. I have performers come to me, they're like, I'm just not thinking very well when I'm
right.
dancing,
Right.
or I'm stage fright. I get that a lot. But
Right.
it's right now, it's the everyday stresses. I mean, especially right now. So that's the small tool. That's self-havening, which is what you can do yourself. When you work with a practitioner like myself, we can get to the heart of the issues. And the heart of the issues mean like the real root work, the stuff that's really might be like what I dealt with, some real upsets from years ago, just with my dad's illness, realizing that was childhood trauma, to be a child dealing with a father who was very ill
Yeah.
and not really dealing with it. And then losing my dad was like the ultimate loss. And that I held on to that for 17 years. And when I was havened, and there's different havening under the umbrella of
Right.
havening. There's
Right.
role playing, informational, outcome informational, all these different kinds of role playing that you can do with an actual certified practitioner. It released me of something that I didn't even know I was holding on to.
Wow.
So permanently, like I can't even create the upset that I was feeling before every time I thought about the loss of my dad.
Wow.
Now it's kind of like, okay, you know what? My dad's gone, but wow, let me just savor the moments we had. It completely
Wow.
alters your thoughts, moods, and behavior and how you think of it. It's not gone, Jason,
Right.
but it changes the way you look at an event or a situation, the meaning you put behind it, the landscape. Yeah. Or
That's
that
incredible.
inescapability. Yeah.
Now I have kind of a crazy question.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try and phrase it in an answerable way. But do you subscribe to the notion that everything does happen for a reason, or is it more of it's really about the perspective that lineates things into happening for a reason? I don't know if I asked that
see what you're saying. I definitely see what you're saying. I, yeah, I have to say I do,
Okay.
because I feel that if you're not walking away and learning a lesson from something that really happened, and you're really allowing it to own you, then you're not going to grow from that. And I've had some, I've had some stuff that's happened in my life, in addition to the loss of my dad, and some real heartbreak and um, real upset that surfaced, that there was a point where I was like, forget it, whatever. And I'm never going to get over this, or life will never be, and woe is me, and la, la, la. And just loss in general is grief is hard.
Oh,
You
it's
know,
so
grief
difficult.
is so hard. And grief doesn't necessarily mean a person dies, but grief can be a lot of things you lose in your
It
life.
creeps up on you.
It does. And it can be very frightening.
Yeah.
And then you feel very lonely. But I do feel like I did a lot of inward stuff when I lost, when I felt the loss in my life. And I remember my brother, who is a senpai sensei in jujitsu, martial
Mm.
artist, total mindful guy forever. He's always the guy I go to and I talk to, my brother David. And he's like, I promise you, Hill, man, when in a year or two, you're so going to be beyond this. You're going to look back and be like, you're right. And it was like maybe a year or so ago, I looked and I was like, you're right. Because it is about being kind to your mind and realizing you control this. And what is the lesson I learned from that stuff? Well, I wouldn't be where I am today if those things didn't happen. I
Right.
do believe that. Um, and I think we really do have the power to control the wheel. So yes, upsetting things are going to happen. I mean, I'm sure upsetting things happen to the Dalai Lama all the time. It's not like he's living on holier than. I mean, he's not sitting there like, life is great. I mean, it's work. It's a
Right.
practice.
Right.
And when you get into the practice of mindful thinking and realizing that you need to have kindness and you need to savor the moments, and you need to have gratitude, and you need to realize that when something bad happens or something's happening that you're not really feeling like it's that great anymore, go back to thinking about what might be a better way of approaching it. And can I just say, I think my cat just puked. Did you hear
Oh,
that?
really?
I think that's what that was. I'm sorry. She's not having a very good moment right now.
I saw a tail. We didn't see anything.
Yeah.
We just saw a tail on our
Uh,
end with the corner
yeah,
of the screen. That's horrible.
she's all right. She's very much about being needy. By the way, that's the star that you saw in the Blue Buffalo commercial. She's a bit of a diva, and she's telling me right now, you've been not paying attention to me long enough. I'm just going to go yak in the corner. So,
Hopefully
sorry,
she
Eliza.
didn't
Fine.
eat Blue Buffalo product
No,
before.
it wasn't related to that. She's kind of a diva. Anyway, I was like, God, was that heard on my microphone? Okay, I just need to
We didn't hear
explain what that
anything.
was.
I just saw this black tail like shimmy
Look,
across.
that's life. Life happens,
Right,
And
right.
I do havening on her too, by the way, because she gets a little stressed out. So
Interesting.
I do. You can do it on pets as well. So, but again, it goes back to just, I do think that things do happen for a reason. We
So it's
have to
kind of,
find the
it's
lesson.
really under the grand umbrella of mindfulness therapy.
Yeah, mindfulness is a big part of it. Absolutely. Being able to be in the moment and being kind to your mind and really truly taking a step back, and I think that's another thing that havening does. It allows you to kind of separate from the meaning of what was bothering you, the event, whatever the that feeling of inescapability, that feeling, that the landscape around it. We need to be able to step back, and it kind of gives us a way to calm our minds.
Right.
And so it is a kind of meditation in a way. It uses
Mm.
a meditative approach, but it really is more than that, because it's neuroscience. You're activating the brain in a way that can really change the way you look at things. So,
And this may open up a whole can of worms, but as I've gotten, I mean, I'm still in my mid 20s, but as I've gotten older, I've, I just cannot, I'm dumbfounded. I cannot believe this is not part of the curriculum in high school or even in middle school or in
Yeah.
college for the most part. I mean, you could take a psychology course or PE or whatever.
Mm.
But why is this I mean, can somebody please answer the question why this is not part of the public school system
You know,
on a large scale?
it's so interesting you bring that up because I was just having this conversation with a number of my fellow havening practitioners who are also teachers. We have a group together who those of us who are also educators on, from kindergarten level all the way up to college level. And we were talking about this needs to be in schools. Like we need to be able to give kids the tools to self-soothe. We need to teach the self-havening, which anyone could do self-havening on their own to deal with the bigger issue. That's for the milder upsets, right? But even without havening, we should be teaching mindfulness and meditation in the classroom. And I had a really amazing opportunity a couple months ago because I host a show called Healthy Communities News for CBS Health. And I travel the country and we explore different stories that focus on communities and neighborhoods that are doing something well for their for their area. So one of the stories that I did featured a school in a kind of the projects that they have a meditation room. They have a
That's great.
mindfulness room
That's
and
great.
the kids love to go there. And why can't we see more of that? You know, because instead of giving someone a timeout, make time out somewhere they want to go, right? In a
Right.
way, like let detention be
Yeah.
let time out be, oh, you want me to go to the meditation room? All right. Can't wait to go there for 30 minutes and be in my mindfulness, right?
Right. Right.
So I was really impressed, and the kids that I spoke to on this story were so excited to like, oh, Miss Russo, let me take you in, show you the room, and this is our mandalas, and this is our hammock, and this is our this, and this is the music we played, we put together. They were all over it, So it was really amazing to see that we are seeing more of it, but I would love to see more classes that teach it, you know?
Right.
Um, one being the class I'm taking at Yale right now, which is the science of well-being, which is unbelievable. And I'm really fortunate that they offered the class during this time because it's giving me something to learn, something new to learn. I mean, if we're going to do anything during this time, learn something new to hone a craft, to do a passion that you haven't had time for because you're always running about. Like playing that ukulele on the wall. I've tried a couple times. I'm sure my neighbors love me. And take free classes, do things like that. But I've learned so much just from the science of well-being that we need to be able to savor the moments and the kindness and the gratitude and all those things. So we are seeing some of those classes. We need to see more.
For
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
Yeah. I'd love to see havening in schools, quite frankly. I really would.
Yeah.
I mean,
How long has this been around for?
well, look, the art of touch has been around forever. I mean,
Right.
the first touch we have is when we're put in our mother's arms, right? So touch and touch therapy is nothing that's new, but havening is something that was developed by Dr. Ron Rudin, who is a doctor in New York, and Dr. Steve Rudin, his twin brother, who's a dentist, and Dr. Ron is a internist and deals with neuroscience. But they came out with this, it's been within the last decade that they create, this has actually been out there. They've been working on it for years, but there are two doctors out of New York, and I studied under both of them. Obviously, my certification came from them, and then
Right.
they're trainers. And being in the heart of it's been great because I'm in the center of where it was created and being able to
Yeah.
be with the people that created it. But they put it on the map, and I'm one of the first, I think, 150 in the country that are practicing it, and there's only about 500 of us at this point, maybe
Wow.
less, in the entire world.
Wow.
It's more, there are more practitioners in countries outside the US because there's so many laws here, but
Mhm.
it is it's something that's growing rapidly. It's being put on the map. I mean, just in the last 2 months, I think early April, Justin Bieber had an episode in his show that he has out, and he actually had his therapist on the show that was teaching him self-havening to self-soothe while he was creating Yummy. And all these articles came out about havening because Haley, his wife,
Wow.
mentioned it. And like it went right. So suddenly we were on the map. in a
Wow.
bigger way, because now this huge celebrity is talking about it.
Right. Right.
And you know, just showing how it can really calm the mind, and the self-havening approach can help you self-soothe. And then just with the pandemic happening,
Mm,
all of us are telehealth. We're all online now. I don't take any people in my office right now.
right.
Uh, but the beauty of it is that you can do it virtually. You know, I have clients all over the world because I'm able to facilitate the session with them, teach them the self-havening, and then I just facilitate. But then
Right.
they can also take it on their own. And when they just need a little, like, oh, you know, I'm a little upset right now and this is going on. I mean, anytime mild feelings arise, you can use it as a way to kind of calm the mind down. The perfect example, and I love using this example because this is a true story. Last year, when I was in Europe, I was coming back. I was flying back from Europe after going to the Havening conference, which was
Mhm.
held in London. I flew back from France, and I'm in Charles de Gaulle Airport, and it was a nightmare. It was like 4 hours in the security line before I even got to the spot where I
Oh,
could put my stuff, you know, take my stuff out, put it in the conveyor belt thing that looks like you're in the I Love Lucy episode. And I wasn't even there yet. I was in the line that looked more like Busch Gardens, right? Everyone is complaining. Everyone's going back to New York. So you have a bunch of New Yorkers complaining, which is even worse.
right.
And everyone's wanting to engage in negativity. And I'm just like not having it, right? Like I just had
Right.
two and a half great weeks in Europe, did the Havening conference, traveled this country by myself with my backpack. Leave me alone.
Right.
And and I just started havening in line, like for 3 or 4 hours. I was havening, self-havening, just like, I'm happy. I had a great trip. Oh my gosh. And I just started creating the visual of places I'd been, like Versailles and Budapest and whatever. And people were trying to engage with me. And I noticed, I looked behind me down the stairs, and the escalator coming up, there were a bunch of Buddhist monks that were coming
Mm,
off of some trip, and they were behind me. And it was like me and them were the only chill people in that line.
wow.
And I was like, I'm in good hands. I mean,
Ah,
they weren't havening, but I'm thinking they're using their own approach to being mindful. I'm using mine, and all these people around me are just like, you're not getting anywhere faster by complaining.
right.
So you control what your thoughts are. And all I kept thinking was, I just had a really phenomenal trip. What am I complaining about? You know? So
I'm curious to
yeah.
see if you've noticed different, even beyond just intrinsic differences, like you talked about external there for a second.
Mm-mm.
You know, people, and you can talk about like the law of attraction, and it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like woo woo and all that. But I've dived into some of that over the years with
Mm-hmm.
just networking techniques and being out and being on,
Mm-hmm.
being present, being here. And you know how it is in the drama and
Yeah.
comedic community, acting, film. I mean, there's a real thing that occurs there, especially with improv and um, just going with the flow and finding that you got to get out of you've got to break that cycle, that
Mm-hmm.
in your head cycle. And I was just curious, like, have you noticed a change extrinsically speaking? And if you have, since you've been doing more of this, what has it been?
A change in what specifically? You mean how
The
people
the
are?
ex the external world. So perhaps because you've been doing this, for example, I don't know, there might be things that are easier now than they were before.
For
Um,
me?
yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
So
Not being
not so much like controlling your mood, but it's also like controlling the atmosphere around you and just happenings that are different because of those
That's
tools in the
interesting.
toolbox.
That's a really good question, because I feel like, as I mentioned earlier, with the defensive thriving, we can't really control what's happening around us. So I couldn't control when the plane was going to come in
Right.
from France, or from New York to France. I can't control how people react around me. I can't control a lot of elements. All I can control is this vehicle, right? And this is the wheel. But I think in dealing with things differently, that in itself changes the
Right.
environment,
Right.
because suddenly your environment is more positive. Suddenly how you deal with things is differently, because when you're in a state of gratitude, you really can't be in any other state. And I also feel that you wind up, like you said, with the law of attraction, with LOA, you find yourself being around people who are like-minded. My life has kind of weeded out some folks, because not like for no reason like I'm better than you, but like, you know what, that's just not healthy for me.
Right.
Or and not having people in my life anymore, um on a more regular basis, that I don't feel are jiving with what I'm doing, just being in a more mindful state. I choose to be around more people who are like-minded
Mm.
in that thinking, because then how can that be bad? But that doesn't mean I can just be like, I'm getting rid of everyone. You can't. I mean, we have to be open to other people's thoughts, and we have to be open to uh, that everyone has an opinion, everyone has a right, everyone is valid with what they're feeling. That's the other thing. Because you're going through something and I don't get it doesn't mean it's not valid. It is
Right.
absolutely valid. And that's one thing I tell clients all the time. Or if I'm doing my group havening, I'm like, and I try not to get too personal in the group because we don't want to open up possible triggers, but I always let everyone know in the room, whatever it is you're going through is valid. It doesn't mean because I'm not going through it, it's not. But
Yeah.
in my everyday life, the people that I choose, what is it? Let your vibe attract your, let your vibe attract your tribe, basically.
Oh, that's good. I
So
like that.
yeah, so stealing it. That might have been mine. I'm not sure. But yeah, you have to just choose who you want in that circle,
Right.
and
Well, they
choose
say the 5
wisely.
people that are around you, like the most, those are kind of like a mirror image of what's going on within
Yeah,
you.
very much so. So you're doing the work. You get it. I mean, the way we react towards people when we're very reactionary is sometimes an indication of who we are, right? So a lot of the mirror work that's done.
Right.
Why are we getting upset at what this person's saying? Is it a little bit because we're in that kind of frame of mind? So a
Yeah.
lot of it for
Yeah.
me, the growth comes from being in everything I'm learning was, what is it that I'm learning from this? Practicing more resonance and empathy. So seeing
Yep.
myself in the eyes of the other person. So if you were to come to me and tell me something, and I'd be like, you know what? I imagine, Jason, I imagine that's upsetting. Like, how does it feel like it's a volcano about to explode? It's me
Right.
being Jason for a moment, or having empathy and being like, I wonder what that must feel like. I imagine it's difficult. It's what one of my colleagues um, calls verbal first aid, and she has a book out about it. But it's
Interesting.
it's it's the way we talk to people. And there's an incredible book that I'm reading right now by Sarah Payton called My Resonant Self. And we have to think about our language and what we're using and how we're talking to people, and being an active listener, which makes me a better journalist as well, in addition to being a practitioner
Right.
and
Right.
talking with clients, dealing with their emotional well-being. My journalism has made me a better practitioner. My journalism has made me a person that can truly embrace people more, because I was taught how to be an active listener by going back to the people who you think like that you asked who I admire. That also includes my own family, and my mom and my dad and my brother. I had a really beautiful nucleus of people who were truly active listeners, and having that around me made me better. So I would have to say they're also role models in a way. you know um, my dad was an attorney. He was a great listener. My mom is a wonderful listener. My brother is an amazing listener. So that is also, those are people I give credit to for teaching me what it means to sit back and not be so reactionary to something happening. But it takes work, it takes work. It's a practice like
For
anything
sure.
else.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
So,
work, it's strange. I don't even know if I can describe this. It's strange how it once you start dabbling in it,
mhm.
there's the layers.
Yeah. The
It's
onion.
it's not just what you think it is.
Mm,
It's the root, and
yes.
how, and we had my good friend Sarah Weber on. She was She was on a couple of days ago, and kind of like the Y technique or whatever that is, the Y
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
trail. And I thought
mm-hmm.
that was pretty interesting. I've tried that a couple of
Great.
times, although I don't know when the end of the trail is because you can like just keep, well, why,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? But it is interesting how that kind of happens. Your thoughts on that?
I find there to be a number of different approaches that are really helpful. Not everyone is going to vibe with one or the other.
Right.
I've heard of the wide trail. I've used that in the past, but I tried different methods that work for me. And I think we just have to find what works for us. Some people might not jive with havening. Some people might not want to go get Reiki. Some people might not want to go to psychotherapy and talk to a counselor for an hour. Sometimes it can be exhausting to talk about the same issue. So I think it really matters what works for you, and you have to just be open-minded. The one thing I do love about havening, though, is that you mentioned that you go and sometimes it's not even what it is. Like you go and you're like, oh, I was so upset today, and I want to talk about this for the hour, right? And you get in there and you're like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that because it's going to go deeper. It's going to be something related to something that happened back when you were 15 or whatever. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's in the moment. But the beautiful thing about havening is that you don't have to share the upset. You don't have to be in the room with the practitioner when you're doing a havening session and unload everything. So you can be pretty private. The thing I do learn, though, is that 99.9% of the time, and I'm going to be pretty clear on that being the percentage, with my clients, at least, they do tell me. And not because I provoke it, because you build a trust and a connection. And whether I'm in the room with them or in the Zoom room with them or Skype or whatever, I'm just present with them and I'm holding space for them.
Right.
So when they come in the room and they're upset about something going on, there is a breakdown approach, but everyone's different. We call it bioindividuality in the health coaching world. No two people are the same. So you can't just have this like, oh, let me just check the textbook of how to make people better. You can't do that. Every person has a different journey, a different path. They've had different experiences, and every one of them is valid. And you have to be willing to sit with them and connect with them and get to know who they are to be able to see what approach works best for them. Right. And that's, I think, what the power is behind, serving people in this way and helping people with their emotional well-being, is doing that. Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It's fun work, though.
Stuff.
I love it. I do.
It's great.
Just listening to people's stories, I think that is so important, and it's why I'm working on the podcast too. It's like, what's another level I can take this to as someone who has a voice and wants to share with people and give people the space to share their stories. Where can I create more powerful, where can I lay the more of the groundwork for people to share and learn from each other? Because it really is all about connecting. Nobody's alone in this battle. Your personal upset might be yours and yours alone, but there's someone that's going to connect with you and get it, even though their situation might have been different. It's community. It's all about community. So that's why I do what I do.
Well, speaking of that, the podcast is coming up soon.
Yeah.
And,
I sure hope so. Yeah.
If we could talk a little bit about that, because that's exciting stuff as well.
It is. So I've been working on this for about a year with my producer friend, Alan Seals, who is the creator
Alan.
Oh, please. Oh, that's right. I forgot. North Carolina.
I haven't seen Alan in probably 10 years.
Oh my gosh. I totally forgot that connection. See, that's what I'm talking about. It's all community.
Crazy.
So anyway.
Is he up in New York right now?
He is. He works at Google.
Oh,
and
cool.
he's the head of Google Talks there. But he has a podcast.
Wow.
company, and he has his own podcast, a theater podcast, which totally, I'm going to shout it out there because he interviews
Sure.
all the big people. And he also has the Broadway podcast network as well. So
Wow.
we had been talking about it for a while, and he's producing my podcast, Holistically Speaking. And we were getting ready to launch it. I was put a launch date out there in April, and then this whole thing happened, right? So I had to put some things, you don't want to overload yourself. You got to realize what you can do, because as you were talking before about just doing so many podcast interviews,
Right.
it's really important to take care of yourself and self-care. And with me, I knew I had my students that I had to take care of because they were all going to online at St. John's. So that was a priority for me to make sure they're okay, because they're already dealing with anxiety and stress of just being a college student. And then I also had my other job and my clients inhibiting and health coaching. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm not going to rush the process. I have a number of interviews I've done, and I'm going to launch it soon. So Holistically Speaking, basically what it is it's an empowering place to basically, well, I would say explore awareness, self-love, transformation through health, healing, and humor, because we have to see the humor behind things. We have to know, even though we've been through the stuff,
Yeah.
there's still a good story and a good laugh behind it. We have to see the laughter. And you knowing me, it's not, I do go to that place. I mean, I'm just talking about my cat puking, uh, but it's sharing life-changing experiences and knowledge and having guests on my show with varied expertise, and finding out who we are, how we got that way, and what it takes to be a happy and healthy grown-up, basically. So that's Holistically Speaking. And kind of word for word, that's Holistically Speaking. So I'm looking
Right.
forward to it. It's people in all walks of life that have different expertises, and from the musicians to the therapists to the to other health coaches, to other professionals that are just living their life holistically. And that doesn't mean that you're only eating, greens and not touching carbs. Holistically means balance. That's what holistic means.
Mm.
So my idea is to have people come on that are living their life in balance, but maybe sharing what had them out of balance that brought them to this place of holistic living, Holistically Speaking. Yeah, I love play on words.
It's great.
Yeah. So I'm excited about it. I have a couple interviews this week set up, and I'm hoping to launch really soon. So yeah, follow me on Instagram. I'm
Yeah.
using it already. I'm starting to talk about it already. So yeah, it's going to be cool. I love chatting with people. So as you know.
We'll have, obviously, the description box below or to the sides. We'll have all the handles for social
Yes.
media and all
Great.
that information. You can send me anything else that I don't have already.
Super. I love it.
Best and worst on-set experiences for you, if you had one of each.
On set.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, this goes back to like 19 late 90s. I remember, and I wouldn't say it was the worst, but it was the most bizarre. I was working at a station in Louisiana, and it was where I was a producer and anchor. And I think at that time I was moved up. I was already an evening anchor, so I was 5 o'clock anchor,
Oh,
and the producer of the show as well.
wow.
And there was like a cricket infestation at and I know this is on some like America's Funniest. I know our station made it onto America's Most Funniest Videos a couple times because we were so ridiculous. But I mean, I worked for an NBC station. It's not like it was some wee little nothing station like Wayne's World. It was like a real TV station, but we had a cricket infestation because we had which happens a lot in the studios. There's usually a big loading dock door. So they were getting in under the loading dock door, which
Oh,
actually
boy.
entered into the studio. And there was like one day where they were just hopping in front of us during the newscast. I mean, it was like ridiculous. And then one scared the bejesus out of our sports anchor, who was sitting on the set next to me. And he went flying up off the cake top, like flying. And all you saw was his sneakers and his shorts. And he's got his like tie-in shirt. And because that's like the age-old question: do anchors and TV people actually wear anything below the anchor desk? And it's been a big question that's come up recently because everyone's doing these, virtual things now. And I'm like, I'll just tell you this: depends on the time of the show, the market you're in, the day of the week, and sports guys can really do anything. So
Right.
But he went flying up and the crickets it was ridiculous.
That's great.
It was good. It was a good story. What was the other question?
Just anything really memorable, positive wise, like best set or best show experience.
You know what? I had some really good experiences working with North Carolina Theater in Raleigh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. I was on the stage with Paul Sorvino. We did Fiddler on the Roof together. He was our Tevye. He was amazing. I got to know him a little more personally, I think, because I was hosting my TV show at the time, Second Cinema, which is an independent film show. So he came on and we did this, like, I don't know if you were there, but we did this talk back. I did Second Cinema live at the conservatory, and that was a really great interview. So I got to know him for those 3 weeks a little better because I spent more time giving him the space to share, and he loved to share, and found out a lot of really amazing things about him. He's a trained opera singer from City Opera in New York. He's a sculptor. I mean, there were a lot of really wonderful things to learn about Paul. The other show that I did that I had so much fun, I can't remember if it was before or after, was The King and I with Lou Diamond Phillips. He was so much fun to work with.
Yeah,
we had a blast, and that was I think
I saw both of those.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
They were both at Memorial, right?
They were at Memorial Auditorium or whatever it's called.
Whatever it is.
I don't. Has it changed? It's probably changed like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I worked with Lou over the summer, and it was a summer show because anytime kids are involved, they always do the big summer, the big shows that involve children during the summer, and that was such a great experience. He really was the Pied Piper that paved the way for a really wonderful experience where it's not just like equity versus non-equity or chorus versus leads. I mean, he nurtured that group of people. Yeah. He really did. I mean, I remember hanging out on top of his SUV watching the fireworks at North Carolina State Fair because it was over July 4th. And I'm like, I'm sitting next to Lou Diamond Phillips just having a beer. This is kind of cool, right? But he was just Lou. I mean, we would go do karaoke every Tuesday night. They had an article that came out about him calling him the king of karaoke because for those 3 weeks he would show up. We would go to karaoke I think it was Tuesday nights at Fat Tuesday, something like that, off of Glenwood. Right. And we would go to play pool and he would sing like Desperado or something, So, it was so much fun. He was a great guy. He was really fun to hang out with. So those were some good experiences. Yeah, I mean, there's been many, but those are two that, well, I mean, one was kind of a crazy thing, but I would say for theater, that was fun. For working in television, I think when I first started working at QVC was kind of cool.
I bet. Did you ever meet Lori?
I never worked with Lori because when I was there originally, I was in the home and garden area.
Oh, okay.
Which was it was so ridiculous to me that I worked in home and garden, but I had no garden. I lived in a 3rd floor brownstone in New York City. I mean, and I had a porch, which wound up looking like Times Square with all the solar lights I had out there because I was like testing all my stuff out before the shoots. But that was a real lesson in live broadcasting. I mean, I worked in live TV for years, but QVC is like no other. It is a beast like no other. Live 24 hours. You get called 72 hours before you are there in 72 hours. And it might be 2:00 in the morning and it might be 2:00 in the afternoon, but it is always sunny at QVC because the lights are on. And I was working in the home department. So there was a big house on it was like a house behind me in the yard.
Yeah. Sounds like the MTA. Lights are always on, man.
Oh, or like a casino. It's
right.
Like a casino. You're never, yeah. And so I worked in the home and garden division for a number of years with Westinghouse Solar Lighting. And then I moved over to health and wellness and health and fitness when I started getting into this area. So then I started working, I was like Marie Osmond's backup for Nutrisystem. And then I was I did a couple like different fitness items. So I was on a couple times, but when I was in Home and Garden, I was on like 100 times. I practically lived outside of Philly for
Wow.
the couple of years I worked with Westinghouse. But it was a really good experience. I got to meet Joan Rivers, which I thought that was the highlight for
Wow.
me. I know my
Yeah.
mom, it was a highlight for my mom because she loved Joan, thought she was like one of the original women comics, you know, of her generation. And I remember when I met Joan, my mom hand wrote a note, and she's like, she gave it to me like it was in home room. She's like, next time you see Joan, can you give her this letter? And I was like, oh my G. And it was like, dear Joan, you are an inspiration. I mean, it was so sweet. I mean, it was the sweetest letter that she's like, I just wanted to know how much she influenced me. I'm like, well, why? Are you going to do stand-up, Mom? You know?
Yeah.
But it's just an inspiring person. And like when she passed, I was still working there, and it was pretty heavy because
Yeah.
she was quite a tour de force in her tiny little body. I mean, she's tiny, but
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that was a really good experience working with QVC. I learned a lot about TV in a different way that I didn't really have before, just working as a news anchor or a reporter. Yeah,
Good
because there's
stories.
no teleprompters in that world.
Wow.
It's all ad lib, all ad lib. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So it's all about the art of the conversation and listening. You know.
I was
Yeah.
going to bring this up earlier, but I'm going to bring it up now.
Yeah.
Fatigue and
Mm,
decision-making fatigue. And
yeah.
I'll even take it a step further because we could talk about it from an entrepreneurial standpoint, but since I'm going to try and specify to your field, which is, I don't want to say analysis paralysis, but all right. So let me put it this way. So I'm an INFJ.
Yeah.
Now that can mean a bunch of different things, but from a Myers-Briggs point of view, if you're
Mhm.
familiar with it, you already know where I'm going with this.
Right,
Where,
but I'm trying to remember what I am. I'm like E something something something.
yeah,
Yeah, I
you
don't
got to
remember.
be, you'd
Feeling.
probably be like
Yeah,
an ENFP or
E-
something. Like, yeah,
ENFP. I think. Yeah,
yeah,
right. So from Myers Briggs.
yeah. It's decision-making fatigue or just self-work fatigue, where sometimes it gets to the point where, because I never knew this about myself until you learn about these things. And what I learned was I like learning about myself and
Mhm.
self-help and
Great.
all that self-improvement. It can kind of turn into a loop. My question for you is, do you see that occurring often, perhaps with clients, and what's a way to kind of combat that? Because there's always that other side of the coin where it can be a little much, depending on the personality that you're working with.
You mean what? Are you asking me how fatigue can affect you? Is that what you mean?
Perhaps, or
Okay.
working, do you see a trend with folks where perhaps with havening or whatever, like it could what am I trying to say? It could turn more into a stressor in itself, or
Oh, yeah.
it can turn more into a job instead of the actual remedy, if
Well, I
that
think
makes any sense at all.
kind of.
It's a
Uh,
crazy question. I know
well,
it's like we want
you're talking about fatigue,
fatigue.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Self-help
how
fatigue. Can you fatigue yourself in self-help?
can you tire
Can you
yourself
tire
in?
yourself out in self-help?
Oh, okay. So can you become exhausted with too much self-help, you mean? Like I'm just getting too much kind of
We
thing?
could we could we can start there. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay. Um,
Crazy
if anything,
question.
if no, actually it's a really interesting question. If anything becomes a point where, but if anything is not bringing you happiness and value, then why are you doing it?
Mm,
Right? So
mm.
if you're exhausted with the work you're doing and it really is just like monotonous work, and it's not bringing joy to your life, I think you have to start asking yourself a new question, and that's really important because you're only you're I love using the scenario of the starfish, right? So it's a pretty famous story about the guy who was throwing back the starfish in the ocean, and somebody came along and was like, why are you throwing that back? He's like, well, I'm making a difference. He's like, well, you can't save them all. He's like, well, I just made a difference to that one, right? So the whole idea is you can either be the starfish or you can be the one throwing back the starfish. And that starfish that was thrown back as part of the entire ecosystem that one starfish will make a difference in some manner somewhere beneath the ocean floor. So you need to kind of think of yourself like that. Like, what do you want to do to thrive? If you are just sitting on the beach in the sand, drying up, shriveling up as a starfish, what good are you doing, really? But if you're throwing yourself back into something where you can create more and thrive in a new way, and maybe you had assistance from somebody throwing you back, or maybe you're the person that offered assistance to throw somebody back. So what I'm trying to say is, like, ask for help. Sometimes we need help. It's okay. We are so ego driven sometimes. We have to let go of the ego and realize that we will thrive. But if we're in a place where we are just like kind of just sinking into the sand kind of thing, well, then you're kind of asking for your own destiny in that way.
Right.
So in fatigue minds, well, first of all, when we're in a fatigue state and we're tired, we're not thinking clearly. Let's just talk cognitive here. You need your rest, right? I know they say some people, I remember the days when I was doing my master's degree and working full time and doing a 4-hour morning shift. I could do that back then. I would never even attempt that now, because my body needs more sleep.
Right.
I know what I need. So you need to listen to your body. It's really important. Some people totally thrive from the adrenaline run, but at some time you're going to run out of the gas, you know? And I don't think there's ever too much self-care, because like, that's like saying, well, the car will be okay in the lot if, you know, maybe I'll fill it up, maybe I won't. You can't leave something for too long and let it be idle and think that when you start it up again, it's going to be perfect. There's always something that needs a little tweak, a little work there. So I think it's a constant. And I like to use the word self-care more than, I mean, self-improvement's good too, but we need to constantly be
Yeah, I
working.
like that better. I'm gonna
Yeah.
start. Yeah.
I mean, yes, we're always improving, but care just sounds more nurturing. Improving
Right.
sounds like we're faulty in something, you know?
No, I like that. That's good.
Yeah. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, like I said, I don't even know exactly what I was asking. I just wrote the word fatigue from like 20 minutes ago and
Uh-huh.
somehow was going to tie it in. But just because I've seen it before with people where especially, and back to the entrepreneurial side of it or just creative side of it,
Yeah.
decision making fatigue. I've seen it in my own life, and
Mm.
I know that other folks have as well. And sometimes that it can just be really tiring.
You mean the constantly having to make choices?
Yeah, and
Oh
small
yeah.
things, very small, minute things can turn into very, very big deals for no
Yeah.
reason.
Oh, yeah,
You
and
know,
we really control how big that becomes, and that
right?
goes back to being kind to your mind and, like, stepping back and savoring the small things. I mean, there's this thing called, like, the act of wanting, constantly wanting, and, if we are constantly wanting and not really being present in what we have, then we're not savoring what we have, and we're not giving gratitude to what we have, and we're constantly having this this dialogue in our minds, like there should be more and I should be doing this, and the comparing to
Right,
other people,
right.
that will just take you to another
Yeah,
place,
that's
you know?
nuclear. That's
Yeah,
nuclear.
so the comparisons to others, which we see so much more now because of social media,
Yeah,
and I deal with the anxiety and stress of people all the time because of that, the constant wanting to be like this one or that one. But also like, oh, my life was better yesterday. And it's like, okay, there's a good in that too. Like, reflecting back to yesterday will make you look at today like, oh, well, today's good. I think it's how we are really mindfully approaching things. So if you're in a really good place right now, Or why not stop in this place and be like, this is good. You know, I'm having this cool podcast with Jason Damico I haven't seen in years. And like, how cool is this? The moment that matters, right?
Right.
But if I'm thinking, I could be doing something better, you know, it's, we
Or
have
thinking
to,
about, what you have to do the next day or what happened
yeah,
yesterday.
like you're not in the moment, and it's the small savoring moments. And it doesn't have to be like huge savors. It could be small things like, I just had this really great meal, or I went out for a bike ride yesterday. It was the
Right.
first time I was on a bike in like a year, and really outside in like a week. And I was like singing to the top of my lungs, going down the street. People probably thought I was crazy. I'm like, I don't care. I'm like savoring the moment, you know?
Right. Right.
We, in that moment is with me. And I wrote it on my wall for my rewirement, because I do the rewirement every day, of how I want to remind myself of like what I savored, what's my gratitude moment for the day, and I think those are the ways we rewire the brain into thinking. And it's not tricking the brain,
No.
rewiring it. You're rewiring it the way you want it to be, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
altering your thoughts, moods, and behavior. And we have the power to do that. We being me on my head and you in yours, right? So we can get exhausted from trying so much, but if we're trying too hard, maybe we need to sit back and think, maybe we're not being so authentic to what we're asking for, right?
Mm.
Maybe I need to sit back and just listen. And I've been doing a lot more of that too, is the mindfulness. It's
Yeah.
like sometimes
Yeah.
sitting in silence and just
Yeah.
asking the question can make a really big difference. Have you heard of The Artist's Way by Julian Cameron?
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was going to ask you about something, but let me,
No, it's okay. We can come back to it if you want.
no,
Did you
no,
want
no.
to ask me
I
something
want to
first?
hear about it.
Well, I mean, it just goes to, it's part of that whole practice. So Julian Cameron created this thing called the Artist's Way, and basically part of that is in her book. She talks about just getting up in the morning before the ego sets in and just writing, like
Hmm.
writing 3 pages. It doesn't have to be, beautiful. You're not putting it in your like pretty little diary or journal, whatever. Just write. You can burn it. You can do whatever you want, but it's allowing you to be in this state of like not allowing the ego to set in, and you just
Hmm.
write. So that's one way to do things. I love to sit and journal, and I'll ask myself like, whoever you believe, dear God, dear spirit guides, whatever, from the highest place of compassion, please write through me, whatever, whoever it is you believe,
Right.
and just be in a moment of silence, ask the question, and then write. And I think there's a lot of power in that. And of course, gratitude writing journal is a really wonderful thing to do. I encourage that. I try to get my students and my clients to try to get into journaling a little bit, because a lot can be said when you're in the moment or the state of X, Y, or
Yeah.
Z.
Yeah.
You can reflect back and be like, what was I feeling in that moment?
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah, it really does make a difference. It really does. Yeah. Well,
I was going to say, you said, talking about presence, Eckhart Tolle, you ever,
mm,
Power of Now.
Power of Now. Yeah.
Have you read it?
I've read both of the, I've read Power of Now, and what's the other one I have? Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
Now
There's
that
the other one. I haven't read the other one yet.
you just now, because you said The Power of Now, I can't think of the other book. I think it's like in my room somewhere. I don't know.
I can Google it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway,
just,
Eckhart. I love Eckhart's. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty deep.
Mm-hmm.
Some of
It
those
is.
concepts.
Have you actually watched Eckhart?
Yes. And
He's so interesting.
that's a whole other frightening watch, because it's like, man, this guy is just on a whole other planet.
He's brilliant, though.
Oh, I
He
know.
really is.
I know.
Oh goodness, I'm looking up the other book that I'm trying to think of. But let's see. Oh, then A New Earth. A New Earth.
New
That's the
Earth,
other one I
that's
have.
it. And I've heard
Uh,
that one's even on a whole other level.
yes, A New Earth. I
Yeah.
could not think of it because you said The Power of Now. I'm like, yeah, I've got that one and the other one. Powerful stuff. I mean, there's so much good stuff out there, and you can like stand in the self-help area of bookstores and to nauseum and and find stuff. But it's, again, it goes back to what gravitates to you,
Right.
you know. But
Right.
we have so much available to us now to be in a mindful state because of the internet, because of the availability of being able to watch TED Talks and the books that are out there, and so much that's being offered right now for free, you know, the Super Soul Sundays and the Deepoks and the Oprahs and all the stuff that's happening is really inspiring, because people are giving the gift of healing. Because many of us, you know, I don't like to call myself a healer, and by no means am I on the same level as those people we've been talking about. But what I do like to say is that through my own healing, I'm able to hold space for others to guide them and empower them on their own healing journey. I don't
Right.
want to heal you. If you were to come to me, Jason, it's not about me being like, boom, you're good. You know, here's how to do havening. You're good. It's me giving you the tools to help in your mindful and healing journey, so that you have the power in your own hands to do whatever it is you need to do, whether it's havening, whether it's meditation, whether it's EFT, Reiki, whatever, writing, singing, you know, playing your guitar, whatever it is, whatever's therapeutic to you. My job is to help you find that space and guide you in that direction and let you know it's your journey and it's okay, you know? So,
It's good. That's good.
yeah.
Well, future plans for you, despite everything that's occurring,
Um,
what's next in the works besides the podcast and working with clients? You've already got a lot going on.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you mentioned that. So I started this defensive thriving program, and I've been feeling it out as kind of an experiment the last month or so, and it's been really catching on.
Cool.
So I want to be able to expand on that and do that more on a speaker level out there, you know, get on once we're back in action, and even offer it online as well. But, you know, I feel like I'm really trying to stay present.
Mm.
And I actually, so there's a book that I'm thinking I'm starting to write.
Well, it was crazy because I was going to say like an hour ago when we first, right in the
Yeah.
first part of this, I was like, she's going to write a book, or
Yeah.
like, I already like, man, that's crazy.
It's something I've already been
And I was
working
going to
on.
bring it up, but
It's cool. I mean, I'm putting it out there in the universe, you know, I'm declaring it. I have already talked about it. I mean, I'm not getting into the nitty gritty and whatnot, but there's something that's going to be available to people
very cool.
that is going to help them on their journey, and doing so in a very healing, holistic, and humorous way, and a loving way, and doing it with the Hale Method, you know, the honesty, authenticity, integrity, and love. But I want to give people something that's not a hard read, because I read a
Right.
lot of books that are long and short, you know. I'm looking at all my books, but I want to give people something that's easy to go to, and they can find in just any chapter at any certain time something that they can gravitate to. And that's what I've been working on. So yeah, I mean, that's the creative way, that's the artist way, is to create and continue to share this gift. I feel like I've been given something that I didn't really know I had. You know, I've been telling stories for 25 years and sharing other people's stories, but there was so much time that I was doing that where I was like, well, I don't want to be an entertainment reporter, and I don't want to be I mean, I was a financial news anchor for a while in New York City. I didn't know what the heck I was talking about. I hope I didn't kill anybody's like futures. Well, like I would like write the stuff and then I'd be on air and I was like, I hope I didn't just destroy somebody's like, you know, retirement. But I mean, it was not, there was no passion in that. I was just kind of like the bearer of news, you know.
Right. Right.
But now I feel like my voice being a presenter is my skill. And there's this really great program that you can use that helps you find like assessment, finding your skills, which is strength-based leadership, basically. And I took the whole thing a couple of years ago. A girlfriend introduced me to it. And of course, it came back saying, you are a presenter. You are meant to blah, 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 share the world's, you know. So I'm like, well, I already have that. So I need to put sharing holistic living and living well and finding balance and empowering people and being kind to their mind with this skill that I have, which is being the voice and giving people a place to share and actively listening and you know, as we're sitting on the couch having a conversation. So whatever I can do to share that on a greater level, I'll do. So I'd love to see things manifest where I'm able to empower people and inspire people and let them know that they're beautiful and perfect the way they are. And we all can be that starfish and create this amazing ecosystem and be defensive thrivers. So,
That book's gonna be a success. I'm telling you
aw,
right now.
great. I'm going to just put that down in the back of my book as a quote.
Hold me to. I'm telling you that.
Oh, thank you. I
I just
appreciate
feel
that.
that.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's a labor of love.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's gonna help a lot of people.
and it's therapeutic to me too, Jason. You know, everything I do, as much as I'm sharing with others and helping others, I tell everyone every time I do my defensive thrivings on Thursdays, or last night I did one for Mother's Day, like a special one. Um, every time I do them, I say, please, and with private clients too, or just people I meet, I'm like, I'm learning from you. You're giving me a gift.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just me here, like, oh, come into my room and share your problems. I'm becoming a better person because of what you're sharing.
Right.
I'm becoming a better practitioner, a better listener, a better human being because I'm holding space for others
Yeah.
to be able to share their stories. And I think that that's really where that's the kind of community I want to be around, you know, those kind of people.
Well, I'm smirking because I had a I had a course in college. It had to do with andragogy,
Mm-hmm.
andragogical
Mm-hmm.
principles, and so it's just it's great. It's just great stuff. I gravitated towards that in college, and I had no idea what it was until I learned about it. I was like, oh wow, this is like
That's awesome.
active listening
Yeah.
and all of that.
So
And,
important.
you know, teacher to, and as a private music teacher since my late teen years,
Mm-hmm.
and I was blessed to learn for some greats, and all the greats that I learned from, it was that kind of equal playing fields. You know, we're both going to learn something out of this. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
facilitating the knowledge. It's not this, it's not a hierarchy thing,
Yeah.
so to
No,
speak.
we learn from each other. We are a community. It's a global village, and we need to walk away knowing that they're every person we touch in our lives, whether they're with us for what is it like, people are either here for a lesson or a moment or a lifetime or whatever the
Mm,
actual saying is,
mm,
but learn from that person. And I'll share one story with you that happened to me. I did this
sure.
program years ago when I first moved to New York. Right before I moved to New York, I did the Landmark Forum, and it used to be called EST. It's changed a lot. A lot of people thought EST was a little cultish and whatnot, but Landmark, I mean, you know, people are
Yeah,
going to think what they want. But
yeah.
anytime you can learn about yourself and be more witness to yourself. But I did this program called the Landmark Forum in New York, probably about 3 months before I moved here, maybe. And I remember there's like 2 days of the course, and this was the regular course before I took the advanced, where you know we're trying to learn about like pop and like we're supposed to just pop with what we're thinking about. Like it's supposed to just hit us on the second day what life's about, you know. Life means it's all means nothing and blah 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 and all these things that they put in your head. But what we take a break from the second day before we come back for our graduation, and we're supposed to just enjoy whatever, right? So my brother and my mom were both Landmark graduates as well, and my brother and I had a conversation that weekend, and he said that day off that you have in between, that Monday, go to Hayden Planetarium and just go see one of those space shows,
Mm.
right? He's like, because you'll realize in that moment how small you really are in the world,
Oh
but how,
yeah,
oh my God, it was
yeah.
like,
It'll. Oh
I
yeah,
mean, my head almost exploded. So I'm
yeah.
at Hayden Planetarium down on the Upper West Side on that Monday, and it was like Harrison Ford's voice, and he's like, you know, doing the whole space, blah blah blah. I don't even remember what it was about. It was just space, and I'm sitting there in my chair, reclined, and I got out of that thing feeling like, holy heaven to Murgatroyd, what just happened to me, right?
Right.
And I went to buy a pretzel on the street because I had to have a hot pretzel.
They're so good.
So good. They're so good, but they're so bad for you. So I bought a pretzel and I went to sit on a park bench and just journal. And I sat down next to some random guy. Like to me, in that moment of judgment, he looked homeless. But he was sitting there and he was just kind of looking around. I mean, he didn't look dangerous or anything, but I sat down with him and I just started striking up a conversation with him. So like Bobby, I think his name was Bobby was his name actually. Bobby from the Bronx. We started chatting and I shared half my pretzel with him. And he was telling me about, he served in Vietnam and, he's job to job. And he wasn't like wailing about upsets in his life. We honestly, genuinely had about a 30-minute conversation over my pretzel. Right. And I just remember thinking in that moment, every person has a story.
Oh yeah.
And this man offered so much to me that I don't think he even realizes. But if I genuinely was able to give him time, which people were walking by looking at me like, that stupid white girl talking, like, where's she from? Talking to that guy. And like, she's going to get mugged. I could tell by the looks people were
Pretzel
thinking,
girl.
right. They're like, this stupid tourist sitting down talking to the homeless guy. I could just tell in the looks I was getting, people were judging.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what I learned from Bobby from the Bronx in like that 30-minute time span that we're sitting in the park on a beautiful summer day in New York City in Central Park was really valuable to me. So wherever you are, Bobby, and I hope you're well, I took something from that moment and realized in this big space, just coming from Hayden, this big space that we're living in, we're all just specks, but
Yeah.
we make up something bigger, so give people your
That's
time.
great. That's great.
Yeah.
And New York City, I think you'll agree with me. It's the only way I can really describe it is electrical and magical. There's just something
Yeah.
about the place that I've never really seen or felt anywhere else.
Yeah, it
Where
is a
that
magical place.
anything can happen.
Anything can happen. Anything has, a lot of things have happened.
Yeah.
It's been a really cool time living there and being from New York, but I wasn't from the city. I was from outside the city, about 45 minutes in Westchester County.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up near the city was great, but there's nothing like experiencing New York when you live in it.
Right.
So it's an experience I will always cherish. And living with a number of other people in an apartment, to always renting. We always had a room that we rented out to like actors,
Right.
So it was great it was like the epitome of some kind of a movie or a television show where it was like the actors' lives, and I was really fortunate. I had good roommates. So,
well, talking about being part of something greater.
Yeah.
Real quick before we start wrapping this up, faith and just kind of your personal, you don't have to get too personal if you don't want to, but just your thoughts on how that plays into really the dialogue that we've had.
That's a really great topic that I love to talk about. I grew up in an interfaith home. I grew up with a Jewish mom and a Catholic dad, like Catholic, Christian, altar boy, Roman Catholic, Italian. I'm a pizza bagel. I'm from New York. It's very common. So, yeah, I like to call myself a cashew though, like a Catholic Jew, but and I am a little nuts. But I loved having that experience growing up because it gave me an appreciation of everything. My parents were never like, you must go to church, you must go to temple, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I experienced it all. I had friends that would go to 5:00 mass on a Saturday because they were like Irish Catholics. And I had my dad's side of the family that were all like, Italian and Czech Catholic. And then I had my mom's side, the Polish, Russian, Jews, but my mom was always kind of like Jewish, like we never really it was never like we went to temple all the time, but I experienced both and I was given the gift of both. And I really enjoyed it. But for years I didn't like answering the question. I'll be honest. People would be like, oh, what church do you go to? Especially when I moved south, it was like, what church do you go to? Oh my goodness. I mean, I had been witnessed so many times. But I never really wanted to answer the question because I really didn't understand where I fell,
Mm-hmm.
But now for me, religion is so beautiful anyway. And I feel like every religion out there comes back to love anyway. you know. We like to break it down and dissect it, and some people choose to do that, but every religion, it seems, is based on kindness and love and family and community, you know, if you read the different
Right.
scriptures and books and stuff. So for me, not to get all quotey, but it's like the Buddha says, my religion is kindness, right?
Right.
um, I choose to be more spiritual than I am religious. For me, that works. I'm very respectful of other religions, and I still spend time with the family for Christmas, and I do the Passover Seders when people invite me. By the way, I didn't get one virtual Passover Seder invite this year. The one year you don't have to feed me, I don't get invited. I didn't understand that. But I love being able to experience different community. And it really is, it goes back to community,
Yeah.
congregating, being together, sharing, breaking bread. And honestly, both sides of my family being Jewish and then Catholic, I mean, it's a world filled with food and guilt. So it's fun, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like being exposed to both sides and my parents being very open to me finding my own way, and then obviously my brother's guidance, I felt like it was really important for me to just find my way. And it came really later where I just realized, like, you know what, I'm cool just being, because it's hard for me to think with my dad gone, everybody thinks they're the chosen people, which is fine, that one of my parents is the chosen people and one's not. I mean, I'd like to think that they're, period, they're chosen. they've they've been chosen, you know, whatever that means. Aren't we all the chosen people if we're living the good life, you know, if we're good people, honest people that are sharing space together and kindness? Does it have to be tagged to a religion or a political party or anything like that? I mean, it's really just the human being being the human being in the most raw state, you know, where it comes back to heart center, really.
And I feel like what we've talked about falls under, because I was going to say earlier, there's oneness and unity in the sense of what we've discussed, all of those tactics and being present, uh, mindfulness.
Mm,
It doesn't matter. It's all inner. What it doesn't matter what creed or what religion. It's going to help because
mm-hmm,
it's just part of the human condition,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's just fascinating. It's really been great having this discussion and
totally.
dialogue. I've got one little thing that I like doing at the end. I call it the shootout section, where I just say a word
Good.
that's related to the guest, and you say a word back. And
Okay, so word association.
sure, if
Okay.
you want to say word association, that's fine. It's probably a little bit more primitive than that.
Pressure. Let me take a swig of water. I mean, these things are about to push my ears together.
Oh boy,
And, yeah, I can't believe you're not wearing headphones. What are you doing?
I just
You know
hear
where?
you through the laptop.
All right. I'm like
Um,
trying to look all professional with my huge
I
mic.
I used to do the headphones. I have the little Apple Buds,
Right.
and I just
I
realized
know.
I was like, I don't need them
All right.
because
See, I ruined my hair just for you. So it's all good. Okay. Rapid fire.
health,
Holistic.
fitness,
Movement.
weights,
Muscle.
cardio,
Heart.
fasting.
Hungry.
Can't read my own handwriting. Oh, story,
I'm sorry. Say that again.
story,
Listening.
journalism.
Storytelling.
Ooh, camera,
Lights.
on set,
Uh, on point.
yeah, it's good. New York,
Thriving.
All right, last one. It's the most important, which it really isn't related to anybody. I always ask this at the end. Pizza.
Veggie lovers.
Ah.
I love veggie lovers pizza.
So I asked this question to
Yeah.
everybody, which is, if you could go back in time to your 15-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what would you tell her?
Oh, yeah. I've actually been asked that question before, but sometimes it just depends on the state of mind I'm in. But I would
Right.
say if I was talking to Hilary right now at 15, I'd be like, girl, just own it. It's all going to be good. It's all good. It's all working out. Be kind to your mind and be kind to others.
This
Yeah.
has been great.
This has been great. Very cool. Thank you for
So,
holding space for me.
oh, well, thanks for coming into the space.
The door was open.
Right.
Just walked in.
Took a while to nail the schedule down, but we got
I know. We're busy bees.
Yeah.
Yep.
Glad we were able to do it. So we've got the description box below, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see there, or on the sides if you guys are listening. And do you have any last words? Anything else you want to add on?
I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. And I just want to tell, your listeners that start with self, be kind to self, be more nurturing to self. When we are in a place of gratitude and kindness, we have more to give. So, and just spread the love, not to get all like cliche, but you know what?
Yeah.
It's heart center. So be kind to your mind.
Looking forward to that book.
Yeah. Great. Now, the pressure is on. Talk about fatigue.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, you guys were watching and listening to the Jason Damico show, the Hilary Russo episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you all on the next one. Peace.
Thank you.